Good afternoon. It's Lee Cassidy from Untitled Technology, and it's another one of our In the Hot Seat. We've got a slight change today because we originally had John Andrews join us from Guru to talk about his career in cybersecurity and working with companies like Splunk, but he had to craft at the last minute. He had some other issues he needed to deal with, so he's joined us later. But we've had a last minute change. We've had Jag Guru join us, so let's bring Jag in. How are you doing, Jag?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Lee. Thanks for having me here. How are you?
And thank you very much for joining us at last minute. It was only this morning we had a quick chat to see if you could actually step in and fill the gap for us.
Happy to do that, not a problem.
All right, so give us a bit of background about yourself. Where did you grow up? What your parents did for a living, what you were looking at when you were a school child. You're going to be a train driver, a pilot. What were your plans? And then tell us about how that progressed on going to university or going into employment, whichever you did.
Right. Okay. Well, let's start off where my roots are. So I grew up in a wonderful place called Handsworth in the heart of Birmingham. So, as a lot of people know, Handsworth, it's an inner city area. It's obviously very deprived in some respects, but then there's a lot of entrepreneurs and business people that I know that have started off from the area.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I started off at Matthew Bolton Primary School, which is still there, but I think it goes by a different name. So then I moved on to Holyhead School, which is, also in Handsworth. And then it was just do my GCSEs, which I got through. And then I went on to A-levels. I went on to a college in Erdington, which was known back then as Josiah Mason College. It no longer exists, but I'm not too sure what it is now. But yeah, I did my A-levels there. But talking about college and doing my A-levels back in, I think we're going sort of late 90s, I thought, well, I need to get some money in. So at that point, I was doing some work. And I just got the first job that was available back then. I think it was for Quick Save. And I was working for, the supermarket in Mere Green, which is in Four Oaks, part of Sutton Coldfield. And I was, making a bit of money there. And I thought, oh, yeah, I'm enjoying this. So I kind of started doing more hours at the detriment to my A-levels. So at the time I was doing art and design technology, and I was also doing IT as well. So I always had an interest for the arts and the creative industries. But I think, doing part-time work, getting some money in, I thought, oh yeah, this is good. I'm getting used to it. Let me put some more hours in. So first year I was on really good grades, obviously all C's and above. I was on A, B and C, and then second year slightly slipped. I still passed my A-levels, but had a bit of a reality check. At that point it was, look, I want to go into university. I need to obviously look at my options. So I spoke with my family and friends, and, there's a lot of family that are already in construction. When my mum's family came to England in the sort of late 60s, my granddad, he was a builder by profession, and there's a lot of family in construction. So it was almost like I was always meant to go into the construction field, but I just didn't like doing the manual labor. So naturally I went a different route. So I went into architecture.
We have a few connections. I think you might need to turn your audio down your end. It's a bit loud. We're getting a bit of an echo. Yeah, so a few things similar. Yeah, my family were into construction. They were all Irish navvies, so they dug every hole that needed to be dug for the trains around the UK, across Saddleworth Moor, down everywhere that holes need to be dug in the late 1800s. They were digging holes. But I started in retail as a part-time job as well. I worked in a gentleman's outfit, as people might not remember nowadays, but John Collier's, it was quite a place, and it used to be the saying, Collier's the window to watch. So you'd actually look in the window to see what people were wearing, so you knew you were wearing the right clothes. So yeah, it's a bit of similarity. So what happened then? So you going into construction, what area did you focus on?
So I went into I kind of sort of almost messed up my A-levels, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? So I spoke to my parents and I said, look, I want to go into fine art. and I want to go into university and become a painter because I enjoyed it, you know, painting and ceramics. And they were like, no, you're not going into painting, you're not going into fine art, there's no career in it. We don't care. You can pick anything else but that. So, you know, I had to go back to the drawing board and I thought, well, what else is creative? And I fell into a course at De Montfort University in Leicester, which is a Bachelor of Science in Architectural Design, Technology and Production. And it was almost like it was meant to be, because I joined onto the course back in 2001. So I moved over to Leicester. Spent 4 years there. Did a
sound like it was a good fit for you with the mixture of the artistic and the technology and things that you were looking for, but also in construction. So it sounded like it was a good fit what you were looking for.
I think you're absolutely right with that, Lee. You know, the degree itself, it focused a lot on, you know, architecture, you know, the design, the science behind it, and also the construction elements. So I think it was a really, really good degree. I decided to do the sandwich degree, which was 4 years. So you do 3 years of study and 1 year of work placement. So it just kind of gave me the edge. So, you know, once you're a graduate, right, have you done a degree? Great. Have you got any work experience? Well, actually, I have, because part of my degree made me do a 1 year work placement. So it was really good. You know, for example, the first year, if we talk about the degree in itself, we were with all the architects and some of the other surveyors. So they had a big group of us. I think there was about 220 students. And then they said to me, Jag, which area do you want to go down? And I said, well, actually, I really like the science behind architecture and, you know, how everything kind of goes together. So I stayed with the architectural technology degree as opposed to the architecture degree, which everyone knows. But I just felt that as much as design's very important, it was very important to understand what you're designing, because if you've got a good analysis of how a certain design is put together, you're kind of bridging that gap between design and construction. And that's where this degree is absolutely fantastic.
So where did that lead on then? So what was your first job you went into?
Yeah, so I worked for I was very fortunate. I got a job pretty much straight after university. So I worked for a small interior architecture company in Kenilworth. So I was doing quite a long commute. So I was based at my parents' back in Handsworth. So I was getting the metro into town and then getting the train to Coventry, and then I was getting the X7. So I wasn't driving at the time, but it was a great company. We did quite a lot of different projects there. So they range from working on Butlin Parks, park resorts, Forest of Dean projects. There was a whole mixture of commercial buildings. So it was a really good firm.
Okay, so how long did you stay there?
I stayed there for about, I think the commute kind of started grating on me a little bit, but you know, I was wishing it was quite closer to home, but I stayed there just over 15 months, and then I moved to a firm closer to home.
And did that continue exactly the same type of work, or?
Yeah, it was. I moved to Abacus Architects, who are based in Judy Quarter. So you know, that was a really good firm there. You know, it's a small fit out, and they did the traditional project. So I was literally just given a project, working on it from design, you know, to sort of managing it on project, on site as well. So
you carried on in that the vein. Was that a long-term thing, working with them, or was it another short journey and then a different direction?
I think you know, it's one of those. I did stay there just under 2 years, and then, you know, I started to explore some of the bigger firms. You know, that had been going for a while. So an opportunity arose with Seymour Harris Architecture. They are a quite an old firm. I think they've been going for over 100 years, and they were based on Highfield Road in Edgbaston at the time. So I joined them. I think it was around 2008. And they were the firm that I thought, right, I've got in. They do all the projects, the school projects, the high rise, the industrial, master planning, retail. I found my place. And then
so that gave you an opportunity to try different things then, and see which was really the area you wanted to focus in.
It did. So there was a lot of exposure there, and now you're going to probably know what I'm going to talk about next. So 2008, it started leading to one of the biggest recessions, and unfortunately, architecture and construction was heavily impacted, as it did with many other industries. And unfortunately, 2009 came, and they kept passing on messages, guys, the government, there's all sorts of issues and problems, and we're heading into a recession. So we might have to reduce hours, salary cuts, and the rest of it.
So what happened at that point then? Did you have to go a different direction?
Yeah, it was, I think we kind of expected it, and they cut the workforce by 75%. So, it's quite a big team. I think there was about 80 people at the time. So to reduce that by 75% was quite massive. So unfortunately, I was one of them that had to go. So I just had to look for work elsewhere. Architecture was pretty much, you could ring up, right, I'll do some voluntary work. No, there is no work. So there was nothing in architecture or construction. So I just looked around, was with agencies. Well, what can I do? And it was, I went with this one agency, said, oh, you can work in a call center. And I go, yep, that's fine. And I joined it.
So sometimes it's better to do something different than do nothing at all, isn't it?
That's absolutely right. And people will think I'm mad when I say this, but it was actually one of the best jobs I did, working in a call center. I absolutely enjoyed it. I think, the down to earth nature of people and just the hours, and I didn't find the pressure. I just really enjoyed it and thrived.
So where did that lead to you then? Was that a long-term thing, or was that just a short-term till the market started to come back and construction got back into business and there was opportunity back in construction for yourself?
No, I think that's a good question. And that was always the plan. It was always going to be a short-term gap fill. So if I was out of architecture, I would have just worked at this call center. But while I was working at the call center, within 2 weeks, the old firm, the architecture practice, said, actually, Jag, we'd like you back. And, I was jumping for joy. Oh, this is great. There is a caveat. We're going to send you up to the Leeds office, where you're going to be working 3 nights a week. And then you'll be working in the Birmingham office Monday and Friday. So the obvious answer was yes, I'm going to take it.
But that's a real commute, isn't it? Traveling up to Leeds and back again, and splitting across the week like that. So that's a real commitment for you to take on.
It was a big commitment at the time. I was recently married. I've been with my wife for a couple of years. And I had to tell her, we had moved into our new house, and telling her that I'm not going to be here a couple of days a week. It was difficult, but she understood. So it was a big commitment. I was in the small city of Leeds, great place.
Well, I'm a Yorkshireman, so I love it in Leeds and those areas anyway. And I live in Birmingham now, so I can see the advantage of living in Leeds or working in there anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a great city, and what I really liked is it's very compact, so you could walk from one side to the other in like 15 minutes. It's really great.
So what happened then? So you continued working for the same firm, doing this split between Leeds and Birmingham. How long did that go on for, and what changed?
Yeah, so I was just really glad to be back, and it lasted for about 6 months in total, and then a month before it ended, they said, "Oh, Jag would like you back in the Birmingham office." Great. I was like, yep, back into it. You know, everyone else is struggling in architecture. I'm back into it, and I'm also back in my home city as well. But that was short-lived again. And they go, look, Jag, unfortunately, we did get that new contract and you've helped out in the Leeds office, but, you know, we're going to have to let you go. And I didn't take it too great because I go, look, you could have given me a bit more notice if you had known, you know, that contract was due, you know, going to expire. So it kind of left me with a bit of a bitter taste in my mouth and thinking, it's not how I wanted it to end. You know, if they'd given me a bit more notice, I could have maybe planned around it. But, you know, I was left in that scenario, and I was very fortunate that call center that gave me that job before and only saw me for 2 weeks said, oh, yeah, we'd like you back.
Yeah, so you were doing a bit of, you know, like yo-yo effect, so between two businesses then?
Yes. So then, you know, I went into the call center and I just worked my hours. You know, there was a lot of campaigns there. And, you know, I told him, I go, look, these are my skill sets. Is there anything else I can help out with? And they go, well, there isn't at the moment. And then hold be forth, a week later, they go, by the way, we've had a new campaign come in. It's very different. And, you know, American Express want to utilize our services for foreign exchange. Why don't you, we'd like to put you forward because you showed some interest in other areas. So I joined them and it was a complete new campaign, business to business. And I loved it. I thrived. I was a top salesman, seven months out of 12.
So did you carry on there for much longer, or did you then get back into, because I know you're back in the architecture side again now, but that's quite recent. So, you know, what happened with the journey after that?
There's quite a bit of a journey until now, but yeah, the architect, American Express actually offered me a full-time job in their London site. And I thought, well, that's great. One thing I've never wanted to do was work outside of Birmingham. I've been pretty much always of the thought it's a big city, it's got everything here. You know, I don't really want to work anywhere else. So, you know, I politely declined. But another opportunity came within foreign exchange because of the experience. And then I was working for Rational FX. And at the time, they wanted to grow their Birmingham team. So they offered me a business development manager role. I took it. And we were sponsoring Birmingham City, who are, you know, my football team. So that was I know I might upset a few listeners now, but
yeah, you can say it's not always the best thing to support Birmingham City and be a blue nose sometimes. You know, there's a lot of crying goes on, isn't there, and sadness throughout the year.
Well, you know, at least we're true supporters and we support our local team. So I'm with anyone who supports their local team, as long as they're not the glory hunter and as long as they're not a Villa fan. Sorry.
So, you know, how long did this continue in this exchange side and exchange world then?
Yeah, so it was really good. I was there for only a short while, probably about a year and a half. And then I moved into, I just thought at that time, I've got to try and get back into construction. I was speaking to a lot of friends and who own businesses in architecture as well as employed. And they go, look, Jag, we're really struggling. You know, most of them were out of architecture as well. And it wasn't, you know, great. So I thought, well, what do I do to get back into architecture? So I thought, well, let me go into a different aspect of it. So I was speaking to agencies, I was speaking to friends, I was trying to look out there, what's happening, which industry is thriving. And I came across a role with Signaling Solutions, who are part of the Balfour Beatty Group. And they were looking for just a general document controller. And I thought, oh, this could be a way in because, you know, they're in technically a construction owned business, but they're in railways and there could be an opportunity there. And I took that and joined them as a doc controller. And I worked very closely with the designers who were doing designs, which you think, oh yeah, great, Jag, you've worked in design. You can have a look at some of the design work. But no offense to my friends in railways, there were schematic drawings, very much lines. You know, if you imagine rail tracks, it's just lines and lines of drawings with symbols. So it wasn't very.
Yeah, it's not quite the same, is it, as doing a piece of architecture with, it's more than just functional. It's actually as something to look at as well. Anything that's like down the industrial route, like railways, it's not quite as appealing, isn't it? I would have thought.
No, that's right. It's very, very respected. Some very talented and qualified individuals within the industry. So I picked up a lot of skill sets, but I did try and apply for some of the roles, and they did say, look, we'd like to take you on as a designer. But at the time they were saying, look, this is what we can offer you, which was all fine. But at that point, I think it was just over a year in, I started to realize that the construction industry started to pick up. So I thought, well, what do I do? Do I commit to this, or do I try and get back into architecture? And I applied for, one of the big players in architecture who do some of the biggest projects. Met with one of their directors, reached out to them, and they go, yeah, we'd like to obviously have a chat with you, which was all great. Spoke to them, and they said, yeah, we'll get you sorted. And it's been a few years since you've been out the industry, but we understand what's happened, and let's take it from there. So,
and where did things go from there then? So did you get that job, or did you have to look elsewhere?
Yeah, I got the job, but without mentioning the practice, I have got a bit of taste towards them, but for all the right reasons from my perspective. They made me obviously hand in my resignation, told me that I'm going to be starting, put everything onto emails and the rest of it, and then a week before I was about to start, they just said, oh, unfortunately, we've had to redeploy some staff, and we can't honor the contract anymore. So as you can imagine, it was.
I wouldn't have been very happy myself at that point, definitely.
So I thought there's two ways of reacting. I could be the usual, disgruntled. How could you do this? I've done that. I'm a married man. I've got a family, and you're doing this. But that wasn't going to get me anywhere. They made their decision, and I go, look, I'll take this as a positive. Maybe it wasn't meant to be, and I'm sure our paths will cross in the near future. So I was able to move on to another architecture practice.
So was that much straight away, or did you have to wait a little bit to find a place?
They were very lucky. I was able to go straight back into another job, because if not, there was a big legal case that would have happened.
Yeah. I can understand. I've never been let down like that myself, but I can understand how it would feel. You commit into a new role. You give up the job you've had, and you've been quite successful at, and then all of a sudden, they let you down the last minute. It can't be a pleasant experience.
No, it wasn't. It was difficult, but it allowed me to move on to another firm. And that was a very short-term contract. I was contracting for a firm in Tamworth. They were doing some of the nice projects in Birmingham City Centre, but it was just that commute thing, and it was always like, well, let's see how it goes. And luckily, I was able to get a job back into Birmingham.
So, what were you doing then in Birmingham going forward? And
yeah, I was working for an architecture practice in Fort Dunlop, and we were designing the Aldi. So I was running their projects from design through to working with the construction guys on site to get the projects up and running.
Was that Aldi as in supermarket?
Correct.
Okay. We're doing some work with some construction companies at the moment. So we were talking about a Lidl earlier, but it was slightly different. We were talking about a Lidl where they were doing a lot of work digging up to get to it to deliver power through Western Power, and somebody's stolen all the equipment overnight. So it's slightly different conversation.
Oh, great! That's always a good thing. But this is the problem with a lot of construction sites. There's a lot of materials, and as you know, especially recently, materials are of very high value. So it's a shame when that happens, but
very true. Very true. And what I'm having to do, because we're getting a bit of feedback here, I'm having to mute you when I'm talking so that my sound's not coming through your speakers, then coming back through your microphone. So people will be seeing the mute pop up at times when I'm doing it. So I'm trying to do it as quickly as possible as we go along. But so tell us a little bit more about this job, working, designing Aldi, supermarkets, passing out to a construction company, and then, what was the next stage in your journey?
Yeah, so I went on for a 2-year fixed contract, which I successfully completed for him. A really nice firm, nice practice. I've been very fortunate within architecture to work with some really good companies and get some really good experience. So while I was back in with this practice in Fort Dunlop, at the time I never got to fully complete my qualification. So I did my degree and got a lot of experience within architecture, but was never able to become chartered. And that was always one of my desires, to become a fully chartered architectural technologist. But to do that, you have to make sure you've got all the background in terms of experience on the projects, from design, project managing, contract administration. So I had to make sure I had all that in place. So I got all that information together, and I was able to become a chartered architectural technologist back in 2.
So explain to people what that means then. What's the difference between being an architect and a chartered architect?
So, yep, as my respected friends who I work very closely with, a chartered architect is obviously RIBA accredited. So it's always a good question, because whenever I say to people I'm a chartered architectural technologist, they're always like, so what does that mean? So often I'm referred to by a lot of friends and family, oh yeah, here's Jag, he's our architect. And I'm slowly gritting my teeth like, yes, I'm a chartered architectural technologist. It's the same level standing as a chartered architect. The main difference between the two are everyone knows architecture and a chartered architect because it's always been there. A chartered architectural technologist works very closely with architects as well. And the main difference is one is more design-led and one is more about the technical design and how it is put together. But when you look at the two, you'll see both of them, they work hand in hand in a lot of practices. So you'll have the architect might do just the design, the initial design, and the chartered architectural technologist will take the design and do all the technical construction drawings. So if you were to put them up against each other, that's how they would work when they're in a practice. But if you have someone that's a chartered architect and a chartered architectural technologist, so I can talk about myself here, we're qualified to offer design services and manage projects from inception to completion. So that gives any clients or friends or family the benefit of knowing if they use me and my business, they're working with someone that's fully qualified to offer the whole process from start to finish.
Okay, so just coming onto that side of things, I've got a little bit of experience in that space because one of our customers is BRE, the Building Research Establishment at Watford, and a lot of times they're looking at how this construction for a particular building needs to be done by the size of it, how high it is, or the ground it's on, and it's actually understanding how it can withstand, maybe a movement in the ground because it's on soft earth and things like that. And there's a lot to it, and they did a lot of work, especially after the Grenville Tower, looking at these cladding systems that were being utilised and making sure they were safe and testing each type of material to make sure that's the case. So I'm sure there's a lot of that technology pieces involved in that side of looking at the construction. So I think it's really important, not just the aesthetics of what something looks like, but how it's constructed and how strong it is as well.
I totally agree with you, Lee. And this is this is what people often see, and I know a few friends and architecture practices that will just focus on the design, where they say all we want to do is just the design up to planning stage, and we're going to pass it on to another architecture practice to do the construction drawings. Whereas I'm very much I want to control everything because I love design. I'm creative. We're a design-led, SIAT registered practice here at Puck Architectural Design Solutions. So with myself, I want to get involved in design. I want to get involved with the construction, and I don't want to just end it at those stages. So we all work with the REBA stages of work, which is basically the principles of 0 to 7. So obviously 0 to 3 is the initial conception, client's brief, up to a design stage planning. And then obviously you've got stages 4 to 7, which talk about the technical design, contract administration, and then obviously site investigation, snagging, and ultimately handover and completion. So if anybody works with me, they can be rest assured that we can offer the design services, which are the initial stuff. We can do the planning drawings, but we also offer in-house CGIs, visuals, and then not just to end there, then we'll offer the building regulation drawings, construction working drawings, as well as contract administration, and ultimately helping the client with the contractor to provide completion.
So you can say it leads on well to talk about your own particular business now. I know you actually started this fairly recently and also during the pandemic. So it'd be interesting to understand your experience of starting a business during a pandemic and how it's affected your business going forward. But I think also people would be interested in the type of work you've done, some examples, commercial or business or both. I'm not sure which sector you're working predominantly and the kind of things you've done.
Well, it's a very good question. So, as we know, a lot of people don't like to mention the C word. It's caused a lot of havoc, not only here within the UK, but also worldwide. So the last practice I was with, because I'm now based in Hales Owen, so there were a practice here who had been going for over 40 years, and the coronavirus pandemic hit, and it just meant that a lot of us had to become furloughed and essentially working from home. We were in a pandemic that a lot of people had a lot of uncertainty about, and it impacted a lot of us. So I was working from home, just happy to obviously still be working and being paid, but not knowing what's going to happen. So the practice put me on furlough for a couple of months, and then they had to make the decision, unfortunately, we're going to have to let you go, Jag. We don't know what's happening, and we don't know when work's going to pick up. So I was let go. But that was a blessing in disguise for myself, because I've always had my limited company in the background. So I've had it set up since 2014. And all the architecture practices that I've worked for, they've always known that in my part-time, on the weekends, I do my projects on the side, which have no conflict with what I do within the practice. And they've always said to me, Jag, you're going to burn yourself out. You need to, just work here. And, do you need to do all that extra work? And the obvious answer was, well, if I asked you for the salary that I want, you're going to say, well, we can't offer it because that's what the directors are getting paid. Well, I go, now you know why I do the business on the side. So when I was made furloughed and made redundant from the last practice, it was my turn to actually say, well, I've always played it safe. I've always been very risk averse. Married. My wife's in construction also, but she's a surveyor for a large housing association. So I said to her, I go, look, Bally, I think the time's right for me now to just take the business full time. It's a big risk, but there's a risk with everything. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So that's where the business just went full time.
So you kicked it off, and tell us when it was you kicked off, and also how you found it from that time, because it was a difficult time for everybody, wasn't it?
It was a very difficult time. So I went full time as of August last year. So that's 2020, and it was quite scary at the time, because right, I've got to get all these jobs. I need to get this much in, and it was literally just speaking to everyone in my circles. How do I get these jobs? And it was just getting the word out. And luckily, I've got quite a good circle of friends and, construction professionals and developers. They go, yep, Jag, can you look at this project? And it started working off really nice. And I was like, okay, I didn't expect it to grow at this pace. And then I was like, okay, I'm working normal full-time hours, but I'm doing work in the evenings. I'm working on the weekend. I can't keep working like this. I was literally doing, I don't know how, I hate to say this, but I'm doing at least 80 hours a week. And I spoke to my wife and I go, look, what do I do? I'm a new startup. I don't really want to pay for a new staff member, and I can't afford to go into offices just yet. But then the conversation was, well, maybe that's the right thing to do, because it's not sustainable to be working at the way I was. So I risked it with a voluntary intern, just to kind of test having someone working for me and, whether it would work. So, that worked out quite nicely.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I started my business 17 years ago, so it's a little bit more distant past, but I remember doing 70, 80 hours a week at the beginning, because it was only yourself and you've got to do everything. And it's not just delivering the service to the customer, it's also doing everything else you need to do. All the finance pieces, all the background stuff you need to do to keep a business going, the selling as well as the doing. So it's quite a busy time at the beginning, and stepping into a first employee is a risky situation, because you're not sure, financially how it's going to work out, because they're taking some of what you would be effectively paying yourself at that point in time, and it's a step into the unknown, isn't it?
That's correct, Lee. It's a very scary, but also very exciting time as well. So, the voluntary intern came in for a month. It was good experience, and I realised the work kept growing. My details were being passed around, and then I just thought, well, I've got to take a full-time member of staff. So I got a HR company outsourced, because I didn't want to risk creating my own contracts in case I had anything wrong. So the HR company had my accountants looking at the payroll. So I did everything, by the book. So that all worked out well. Had my first employee full time, and then eventually it was another employee. And I was like, okay, I need serviced offices. I need to find a premises. So then we joined a city-based local. We've got a serviced office in Hillside, and we were the first tenants to move in. At a time when nobody was moving into offices, I had to make that difficult call. Unfortunately, we were in construction. The government was giving us no support and saying, well, you either work or you don't. There's nothing really there for us. So I had to think about, how do I grow my business, also give the support to my staff so they understand what they're doing, but also keep them protected at the same time, and also have a office environment which is safe. So what was interesting, these serviced offices, Lee, they were supposedly COVID safe. So they had all the markings. We had separation glasses as well in between. So, it was just basically being sensible. Guys, just be mindful. If you're not feeling well, any symptoms, stay at home. If not, obviously come into the office, but obviously just keep a safe distance.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I think so many businesses have been challenged with this. One is the operational side of things, but also the situation that not just in the workplace, but also in their personal life, they come into contact with someone, then they're off for potentially 10 days or more, depends on, because some people are ill for longer than the standard isolation period. So you could be without an employee for quite some time as well. So tell us a little bit the kind of work you've been doing since August. Is it commercial? Is it consumer focused? What kind of projects you're doing for people, and how are people responding to the things that you're offering people?
So Lee, our bread and butter is residential. So it's an area which I'll never get rid of. So even if somebody said, Jag, I know it's not a big project, but would you like to do our extension on the back of our house? Definitely. See, those sort of projects I'll never get rid of. I think there's always a market for that. And what we're really doing is we're working on residential projects. So whether it's a simple extension, whether it's a large double story loft conversion, or whether it's a plot of land, we're doing all that in terms of residential. So the benefits that we can offer for our residential clients is, the client that's just got their property, we can do theirs, but we're also working with developers who'll say, Jag, we've got this site. Can you work out how many houses we can do here? And because of my experience, we can offer all of that in-house. So one of the smallest projects I've done, obviously a box extension, right up to 650 houses from previous experience. But we're doing quite a lot of projects where we're working with developers. So there's one site where there's 8 houses being built. We're looking at another one where there'll be 14 homes. We're doing a lot where there's 2 properties. So that's the residential side. But then we also get involved with serviced accommodation, social housing, HMO. So that's an area which has a lot of controversy to it. But we only work with clients and developers that are vetted, that they'll say, we're going to do a social housing, a HMO, but it's going to be done to this level. We know the sort of clients that we're going to have, and it's all been vetted. So we do that, which is another arm. We do commercial, so we're doing a lot of retail. We do a lot of high street sites where we're just helping our clients that might say, well, we're buying this site, Jag, can you do the whole design for the commercial fit out? And we're also doing apartments above as well. We're doing a lot of those where it's mixed use from industrial to residential. So we work very closely with those developers. We're also working on industrial sites. So we're doing projects for those, but we're also doing some very niche projects as well. So sites which are renowned by Historic England. So they're conservation sites. So we're just in the process of signing one of our biggest projects, which will be working on a historic site to bring that back to life.
I'll say I forgot to mute you that time. So it sounds like you're doing a lot of different areas. So very, very interesting to hear what you're doing there. With this change in the way people are living at the moment, have you done any work in things like home offices, so building garden offices and things? I'm sure there's going to be starting to get a lot of people interested in that, because we don't seem to be going back to the normal life at the moment. And working out of a bedroom like I am with my falling down lights because the tape keeps coming undone, people are going to start thinking, wouldn't it be better if I had an office in the garden rather than actually being in a bedroom? And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people starting to invest in those kind of things. So it's a dedicated space for working rather than going back to the office.
It's a very good question, and you're absolutely right. Most businesses, unfortunately, there's been a lot of struggles for many people, hospitality, retail. Really feel for friends who have got businesses in those areas. But COVID, in a way, has been a blessing in disguise for us. I've never seen the construction industry strive so much during a pandemic. It's just unheard of, because I just saw, like, the recession that I had to deal with around 2008, 2009. This is probably going to be worse. But what you've seen is the absolute opposite. What's actually happened for us, and a lot of people ask me this, so how have you grown during this pandemic? And it's, well, people are isolating at home. They're stuck in the four corners of their properties, and they're seeing stuff which they've overlooked for such a long time. So they're saying, well, actually, let's do that extension that we haven't done. Let's extend that. And it's just been one call after another. We've had so many inquiries on this, and that's kept us very busy. But the question that you were asking as well, Lee, is, with this home working, agile working, a lot of big businesses and even smaller businesses making their employees work from home, it's actually brought us a lot of inquiries to say, well, Jag, we've got our garage, which we never use, or we've got a small conservatory. can we change that and make it a study? We've had a lot of inquiries on that, and we're doing a lot of that work.
I think that will continue, though. I think there's going to be a lot of people considering what they're going to do going forward, especially after the recent announcements yesterday that work from home is being advised again, and we're all going to be thinking about what the future holds. And we're 2 years into this now, so how long is it going to continue? It could be another 20 years. We don't know. This, and it could be seasonal type of activity like this. We don't. None of us know what's going to happen in the end. So we're all going to be challenged with it, and we're all going to be looking at different ways to work to be able to do that. And I think working from home is going to be a bit more of a standard thing for people rather than the past when it was now and again you might do a day or two from home, but majority of people actually went to an office. I think that's changed dramatically. But coming back to so we're shortly run out of time. It's 2:45 now, so just to finish things off, can you just tell us where you are now? How many, because you said you've grown quite a bit. So how many people are you working for you now? And what does the future hold? What you're planning to do that's different to what you've been doing so far? How do you want to grow the business? Is it, increase the number of employees? Is it increasing turnover? What kind of things are you looking to achieve in the future?
I think rather than stay in the office, I think, most businesses will always say, it's great to get more turnover, get more staff. There's currently 7 of us, but what I'm really doing to try and create change is invest in the young talent. So we're working very closely with the colleges and universities to say, look, how can we support some of the youngsters to get into the industry? So we've taken on 3 T-level apprentices from Dudley College, and we've got them with us till January because they need 315 hours to obviously complete their course. So we're developing, experience for them, so then they can ultimately complete their course. And if they do well, then we could potentially take some of these apprentices on and take them through university. And this isn't just with these guys, even my staff who are here as well full time. One of them's doing their part 2 in architecture, another one's finished their part 1 architecture. We've got another who's done their BSc in interior architecture and project management. So what we're doing is I'm giving them a lot of time in terms of experience, but also we want to develop the talent, because as much as I'd like to have experienced members of staff, as a new startup, I haven't really got the funds. So what I'm doing is I'm taking the hit by taking maybe graduates on, investing in the youngsters, but ultimately if they stay with me, then the business grows and their experience grows and potentially we'll get more projects. So my philosophy is try and give as much as I can, in this instance, it's investing in the youngsters, bringing them up to speed, but also working with professionals and other developers and clients that want to support their local economies. So whether this is looking at local bids on how we regenerate parts of the Black Country, the West Midlands and beyond.
So coming on to that space, we do quite a bit locally as well. So we've worked with Ashton University for quite a long time, must be 6 or 7 years now, and recently joined the HLSM project, which is all about increasing learning within your employees via channels from the university, but also looking at employing graduates as well and helping them grow, or even just giving them placement schemes for them to get some work experience, because I think it's a challenge for a lot of graduates to start with that first job without any experience of a job. People want to see that they've actually got some experience and done something, not straight out of university. So I think that's an important thing. I also do some work with BScene, if you're familiar with BScene at Aston University, which is a mentoring scheme for graduates who want to start their own business. So they've got an entrepreneurial nature. They've got an idea. They want to go off and do something when they finish their degree. But it's actually helping them understand, what you've learned quite quickly recently is, running a business is a lot more than just being able to do the job. It's actually running the business as well and all the different components of that. So that's quite important as well. So any final words for us before we close things down today?
No, it's I just believe that I'm in a very fortunate position. Obviously, we want to grow as a practice, but also work with professionals, who are going to look to do. Our website's going to be getting done. So if you go onto our website at the moment, it needs a lot of work at the moment. It's just that we've been very busy behind the scenes of getting stuff done. We're going to be investing more in local and young talent, but we're also a design-led practice. So we're very much, whether a lot of clients have got certain money constraints, we'll work within that, but we want to bring about design change and bring it to clients that might not always think it's available.
All right. Well, thanks ever so much. I'd love to meet you while I just finish things up. But hopefully, as we've been going through this, you may have seen some stuff coming up at the bottom. We've put a load of details about Jag's business up and where you can access it. That'll be on the recordings afterwards. That'll be on YouTube and also in LinkedIn. So if anybody is interested in speaking to Jag, you should have all the details. We are doing quite a lot of these sessions up till Christmas when we finish. So we've got KJ from Downtown in Business, KJ Clark, on Tuesday. We've also got Stu Wood on Wednesday and Thursday. I think I can't remember I'm just have to look at the banners myself because it's not coming across the bottom of the screen quick enough. We've also got Sarah Wallace as well joining us from the Birmingham Contemporary Art Gallery on the 16th of December. We're also trying to get some planned for the 22nd as well, but it'll be in the morning for a change because we're trying to shut up shop on the 22nd around lunchtime and get off for Christmas at that point in time. But thank you ever so much, Jag, for joining us today. If you can hang around afterwards, we'll just drop the broadcast off and then we'll just have a quick chat and just make sure you're happy what we've gone through. And again, I urge everybody to go and have a look at Jag's website, which is at the bottom now. It is being changed, as he said. It'll be updated in the near future. But go and have a look and contact him if you've got any particular architectural requirements and looking to have something constructed as well, because he can cover both areas of it. Oh, thank you very much for everybody's attention today, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. Thank you.